NCBI Labs.
Well, we're back for our August edition of our NCBI Labs live event, having gone to a monthly programme. If you were looking for us last week, that's the reason why maybe you didn't find us. We're going to be going live once a month from now on. If you want to mark down the next date in your calendar, it's September 8th, by the way. September the 8th, that's the Tuesday again, for our next live event. But what have we got in store for you today? Well, obviously, when it comes to technology for sight loss, some technology is made for people who have little to no sight. Another technology is made to try to get the most out of any residual sight a person might have. We like to cover both sides of that equation on our show. So today we're going to focus on different types of magnifiers that are available, whether it's handheld digital magnifiers or bigger devices that aren't quite so portable, or even some of the features of your Android or iOS device that involve magnification. We're going to talk about all of those different devices, different ways that we can use magnification, why you might choose one over another as well. And to help us to do that today, we have our regulars, John Paul Corcoran with us and Daniel Dunn as well. And Sean Dorn might join us a little bit later, but we'll wait and see with that one. And we'll also be welcoming Eavan Lynam Gleeson, who will be talking to us about her experience using the Connect 12 from Humanware, and we'll look at that a little bit later on. Really useful device, often used in education, but as we'll see a little bit later on, it has a wide variety of applications as well. Just a reminder that if you have any comments or questions, please do send them in, and we'll do our best to include them in the show. And if not, we'll make sure that somebody gets back to you with an answer. To do that, you can either email labs@ncbi.ie, or you can use the question panel to the right if you're joining us on Teams. But to get us started, we're going to have a look at a video overview of a couple of handheld digital magnifiers that are available at the moment. So we're not talking about the magnifier that has glass or plastic lens and maybe a light behind it. Those are really, really useful tools as well if you get the right one. But the digital magnifiers have a little bit more involved. So we're going to look at just two of them to see what handheld digital magnifiers are about, and we're going to look at the Rehan Lucky 5 and the Humanware Explore 8 in our video. So the Humanware Explore 8 and the Rehan Lucky 5 are two of the popular versions of the digital magnifiers, the portable digital magnifiers that are available. Both of them are very good examples, actually, of what a digital magnifier can do. So we're going to run through the features of both of these magnifiers. We're going to go through them fairly quickly here, just because what we want really to do is give a sense of what the digital magnifiers in general can do. These particular ones have their own design features that can make them more suitable for particular environments. So we'll bear that in mind as we're going through this as well. One of them being the size of the two devices are clearly quite different as well. So that can have their own advantages or disadvantages. But we're just going to run through the main functions quite quickly. Okay, so let's see what the Lucky 5 can do. So we tilt it forward, we turn on the power. The very top of the device, you get a confirmation tone there that it's starting up. Now, I've got a book ready here that we can check this out with. And just because of the angle of the camera that I've got at the moment, I'm going to tilt it up a little bit. But you can see that I can leave it on the stand if I want. And actually looking straight onto that is a very clear, or the sheen that you see on the screen at the moment wouldn't be there. So I'm going to tilt it forward so that we can actually see it properly. It is still blurred at the moment. So if we want to make sure that it's properly focused, we just tap on the middle of the screen. That gives us a nice sharp image. And actually this is a very good image, because as you look down through the color representation as well, how sharp the images are, they're really good. So we can see that nice and clearly. But the text as well is nice and clear. It might not be big enough for you though. It might be the color representation isn't very good at the moment for your particular eye condition. So what can we do about that? Well, as we said earlier, we don't have physical buttons on the front of this device to be able to control magnification or the color display. but we can do it via the touch screen. Now, a lot of people are kind of quite worried about having a touch screen because they're worried that they won't know exactly where to touch on the screen to control different elements of the device. Well, there's not too many controls on a device like this anyway, but it's actually quite useful that the controls are just separated out really in regions of the screen. So, for example, if I want to magnify what's on the screen at the moment, I can go to either the very left or the very right of the screen and swipe up or down. So I'll just do that here. I'm going to swipe up. I can do that slowly or quickly. Swipe up again, and we can see that it magnifies in. Swipe down, and it magnifies out. So I can do that on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side of the screen. And that will work nice and easily. So I'm going to leave it there at kind of a middle setting of magnification. And that will do us for demonstration purposes at the moment. But what about if it's actually displaying in the right magnification level, but the colors aren't the right colors for whatever our eye condition is? Well, we can do a similar control, so swiping up or swiping down, but we do this in the middle of the screen. And this will change the color display settings. So at the moment, as we said, we're in the color mode. So we've got all our colors are displaying properly. If I swipe all the way from the top to the bottom, it goes into kind of a grayscale mode. Again, let's just tilt this so that you can see it properly. That's in a grayscale mode. It's just taking the color out of it, really. But if we want to go to the high contrast modes, we go again. So now we're into the white on black high contrast mode, and we can keep going through. If I keep swiping all the way from the top of the screen to the bottom, you get all these different modes, high contrast modes, black and red, for example. They're inverted. You can have your yellow and black. You can have your blue and yellow, etc., etc., and you can invert all of these. So that just moves on a kind of a rotation. So if I keep going down, I'll eventually get to the setting that we started on, our color setting that we started on. But of course, if you have just gone past the one that you wanted, let's say we wanted white text on black background and we've just gone past it accidentally, we can swipe up from the bottom to the top instead, and that goes back to the last one. So that's the main functions of the Lucky 5 that you will have probably in common with an awful lot of the different devices. Now, there are other settings on here which are very useful, and they can help us when we're trying to get the most out of the device. We're not going to go into each of those, but just as a very quick thing, let's just tap on the bottom here and hold for a couple of seconds. We can change our brightness settings here. There's a button that is on, again, a rotation here, 5 different brightness levels that we can set to our liking. We can turn on reading lines, which can help us sometimes just to stay on the right track when we're reading. And that can be either horizontal or vertical. So again, that's set up there so that we can turn that on. Let's just turn those off again. And we can turn tones on and off as well. We can get into different settings in the settings menu as well, that can just maybe reduce the amount of options that there are for the display colors, which can be quite useful if you don't want to go through a whole list of them when you only use 2 or 3. So that can be set. And we can also make a couple of other changes from that menu as well. One other thing that we mentioned already, but we haven't demonstrated here, just the same button at the top of the device that we use to turn on and off the device, we can use just to capture or to freeze an image. So instead of it being live, let's just press this once, and then I can move the book out of the way, and it's actually got a captured image here, which I can still zoom in and zoom out of. And I can still, once we have zoomed out, we can still change the display settings for that as well, the color display settings. So we can move through the color display settings there. So that's the freeze option, or the freeze function. So let's just finish up. We'll do what we mentioned earlier, but instead of just pressing once now to power it off, we just need to hold it in a little bit longer. So we hold it in and you hear the tone that turns it off. So the Explore 8 has a number of similar features to the Lucky 5, but it kind of presents it in a bit of a different package. So as we mentioned earlier, it's got some physical buttons along the front here. That allows us to be able to change the magnification level and the different color display settings. We've got our port here on the left hand side, the HD port and the HDMI port, and the power button is on the left hand side as well. We have our camera capture here, so to freeze an image on the display is actually a separate one to the power button, which is another little difference between this one and the Lucky 5. And the right hand side is nice and clear. It does have its own stand as well. This stand doesn't double up as a handle, but it can just fold up nice and easy for when we're bringing it along. So it has a similar sort of a profile, if you like, to maybe a mid-sized tablet device, which is nice and easy. And a lot of people already bring that size of a device around in maybe a bag, a handbag, or a case or some sort. So it's not too big to be bringing around. It's not quite pocket sized the way that the Lucky 4 is, but both have their own advantages, obviously. Now this one, when we open this up, when we open the stand up at the back, it actually turns on automatically. So let's just bring our settings back here. And our main color display here is a very good sharp one, clear image again, very similar to the Lucky 5 was a very good image as well. Now obviously with the bigger display we're fitting an awful lot more text in on the image here. So that's quite a good thing in itself. It's a very sharp image, as we mentioned, but again, if it's not big enough, we need to be able to magnify it. So on the physical buttons along the bottom, there's 3 of them. On the right hand side, there's a plus button. When we press it, we can just magnify in nice and easily. So when we're magnifying in, how far does it go? Well, if I just hold the magnification button, we actually get all the way up to 30 times magnification. So a very high degree of magnification. We can press the minus button on the left hand side just to reduce that back down a little bit as well. And it'll take it step by step. If we just tap the button one at a time here, it'll take it by increments of magnification as well. Now, as we did with the Lucky Plus, or the Lucky 5, I should say, this is the color setting at the moment. What if we want to have it in a high contrast setting for reading? Well, that's the middle orange button here on the Explore 8. So let's tap that and you get into clear black and white, high contrast mode. Tap it again, we've got white on black, and you can keep running through your different color settings that are in here as well. And that's very useful. Now this one has just a reduced amount of color settings that are available on it at the moment, but that's fine as well. So that gives us a bit of a sense of that. Now, as we mentioned before, we also have our camera button on the top. So that's a separate one to the power button, and we can capture something there. And then we have that without having the book directly underneath. We have that captured on the screen. We can press the button at the top here, top left on screen, to return back to a live image. Now that gives you a hint of something else that's on here. So while it has physical buttons, this device can also be controlled by touchscreen. So we can pinch the screen together, as you can with many smart devices, to magnify or reduce magnification. So we can pinch in or pinch out to be able to change the magnification levels. And that's very useful. So that gives a bit of a sense again of what the Explorer 8 can do. Very similar in terms of its main functions to the Lucky 5. But actually, as you will have seen, how it implements those particular functions are a little bit different. And that's what you'll find with an awful lot of the different digital magnifiers, is that the way that they implement those different functions, even though the functions themselves might be quite similar to other ones on the market, it's always useful just to see which one suits you best for the needs that you have. So hopefully that gives a bit of a sense of digital magnifiers. If you do need any more support or to be able to arrange a demonstration of any of these devices, please do contact your NCBI Labs technology trainer in your region. Okay, so that of course was just two of the more portable digital magnifiers out there, hopefully kind of representative of a whole group of different magnifiers that are there. There's so many variations on the theme of digital magnifiers, many different devices that are basically carrying out the same main functions of variable magnification and various display colors, but have their own design features which distinguish them from each other. So if we were to just maybe invite our panel on here, if we were to talk about these digital handheld magnifiers for a moment, if you were trying to work out what is the best one to go for, what sort of factors would be involved in that?
Hi, Jude. So, yeah, that's a good question. And I don't think it's like a one-size-fits-all when it comes to the digital magnifiers. There's so many brands and types available. I mean, look at some of the factors that could be taken into consideration. I mean, these can be a great solution for someone who just needs magnification on the go. I mean, they're so portable. You can take them anywhere at all. You can be sitting in your living room back home reading a newspaper. You'd be going out for dinner to read a menu. You could use it for that. And of course, because they're so lightweight, as you pointed out, that they're easy to carry around with you. I mean, look at some of the factors. I mean, I think it was interesting that you compared these two devices today, because one is clearly the Lucky 5 is a touchscreen, whereas the Explorer 8 and the Explorer 5 are is the portable magnifiers with buttons.
Yeah.
And you know, one thing that it kind of strikes me sometimes is occasionally I might demonstrate these magnifiers to someone who, okay, maybe someone comes in to NCBI and maybe they're using not using a touchscreen, they're using maybe a Darrow phone or a phone with buttons, and I'd be thinking, oh well, maybe there's no way that the touchscreen, the Lucky 5 would work for them. They'd be fair, the phone, the top model with buttons, and then sometimes I'd be surprised. They'd love it. They'd love the Lucky 5, and then likewise you could get someone who might prefer that the display with the buttons beneath it. So it depends on what the user's needs are, and I suppose
it probably comes down to a good bit of personal preference, though, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And I suppose as well to pointing out that there's different models available with different size screens. So obviously we're focused on the Lucky 5 here today and the Explorer 8, but obviously you can get different types. So depending on what the user's needs are, I mean, you could be looking at something, say a 5-inch screen up to a 10-inch, if they want it. So you can provide them with a wider field of view if they need it, which is always helpful. And I suppose the other factor as well is occasionally if someone needs to increase the display size, what they can do is very often the portable magnifiers give you the option of connecting it via HDMI cable to a larger screen, like a TV screen, which is something a lot of people do. So they can have what would typically be on the 5-inch Lucky 5, for example, on a large TV screen, which can provide them with even more a wider field of view, which could be even more helpful.
Yeah.
But that kind of crosses into what CCTV does, which would be kind of a standalone unit as well. A dedicated desktop unit. This HDMI feature kind of takes on that end of the market a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very good. And it is interesting just to think about that, because when you've got a lot of devices that sort of do similar things with their main functions, you've kind of got to look into some of these extra design elements, such as even just the simple thing of if every place that you're going to use this digital magnifier, if you would normally have a bag or something with you anyway, well, then you've got somewhere to store a slightly bigger one. If you need it to be pocket size, well, you're not going to necessarily get away with your Explore 8 size devices, but you can carry your Rehan Lucky 5 around in your pocket. But again, that does reduce your field of vision. So you always have to balance up those factors, don't you?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And then another factor as well to consider is thinking about the battery life as well. So if someone wants to take this around with them, maybe if they're using it in an office environment or for leisure, well, what's the battery life of the device? Then typically you're looking at about 3 hours continuous battery life. But again, it's another consideration, I suppose, when choosing your magnifier.
Yeah, very good. And Daniel mentioned just a moment ago about CCTVs, and it's probably a good time to kind of move into just talking about CCTVs. So CCTVs are bigger devices. Some people might be familiar with them already, but maybe we could just get a little bit of a description of what basically is a CCTV if you were describing it to somebody who hasn't seen one before.
Sure. So a CCTV it stands for, as many people will know, it's a closed circuit television. So more or less, this is a device that will magnify things so that they become easier to see. It has a built-in camera, much like the portable device that you showed there. It takes an image of a printed page and it can show it enlarged on a screen. I mean, it's just like the portable magnifiers. You have so many different types of CCTVs. They come in different sizes, and depending on the task they're going to be used for. And we're going to be talking about one or two portable models that are available as well later in the show today, which some people might find interesting. Yeah. So they have their own screen. That's the big thing with CCTVs. They have their own screen, so they're very much it's a standalone device. If you have a CCTV at home, you're not going to be moving it from room to room. They're quite heavy. You leave it plugged in one location. So the typical uses, like for CCTVs, I mean, you'd be thinking about things like, if you have bills or bank statements that come into the post, you can read those. Reading newspapers, magazines, or books. You're seeing like a prescription label, instructions on packaging and that kind of thing. I mean, one of the things that I find people are using the CCTVs for at home would be things like reading the newspaper and maybe not just reading it, but actually doing some like non-reading tasks, like say for example, doing a crossword or doing Sudoku or something like that. I mean, that's really
I've heard of people doing sewing and knitting under them as well.
Yeah. Excellent. Wide variety of different tasks.
Variety.
When you mention like a CCTV, I suppose somebody who hasn't used one before, the first thing that comes into their mind is like the security cameras. And basically it's the same idea, isn't it? If it's a closed circuit, it's not the image that comes from the camera isn't going anywhere else. It's a closed circuit, it goes back to a monitor. Exactly. You just happen to have both monitor and camera sitting in the same machine right on your desktop.
That's exactly it. And it's for people who come in and to an NCBI office and we demonstrate these, and we'll show them features like the models will have a what's called an XY tray. So in other words, you put your piece of paper or newspaper or mail on this tray, and this is movable, it moves up and down, left and right. And what this does is more or less lets you move the page on the screen in any direction you want underneath the camera. So this can be used if you're reading a document. I notice in your video there, Jude, you looked at some of the reference lines that you can apply on the handheld devices, and these can be used as well, of course, on the larger CCTVs too. And then another point as well is some of the units of the CCTVs also come with speech. So it uses optical character recognition and speech output. So this could be useful if for example, someone maybe is maybe getting a bit of eye fatigue and they want the speech to complement the magnification.
Excellent. Yeah, very good. Very useful. Is there much else kind of by way of variation in CCTVs? Like we spoke about the handheld magnifiers, there's quite a wide variety of them. Is there much else that distinguishes one CCTV from another?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at different size screens. Well, there'll be a big one. I mean, looking at, say, I mentioned see some CCTVs come with optical character recognition or OCR. I mean, an optical clear view, for example, would be a 24-inch screen, but they can be bigger or larger than that, depending on what the user needs. So if someone does come into us, I mean, and is looking to purchase a CCTV, we don't just show them one or two. We show them all of them and see which one suits them best.
JP, there was just a kind of a discussion here on the Q&A panel. Somebody was just saying, how would you compare it with, let's say, a tablet? Your handheld magnifier compared with a tablet, and some of the tablets kind of do similar features as well. Would it be?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly, and I know that's something that we're going to be talking about quite shortly with the portable CCTVs that are being made available now, the likes of the Connect 12. But certainly the CCTVs, the more traditional ones, they're standalone units, and as we know, they usually stay in one particular location in the house, and they're not really moved around very much. But they certainly do provide a much wider field of view than the portable devices, so they can be useful for that. And if you think of someone who might be spending a long time using a magnifier like a CCTV, I mean, probably in the long run, it can help with things like posture. Just if someone is sitting in front of one of these devices, they might be more comfortable sitting in front of a larger as a CCTV with a larger screen than hunching over, maybe trying to read a paper with a portable device. But it all depends on what the user's needs are.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Just having the monitor at the right height to be able to sit.
Exactly.
I noticed just when Daniel mentioned there about comparing it to like tablets and things like that, one or two of the handheld devices are actually almost the same sort of profile as a tablet. Like, for example, the Explore 8. So some of the handheld devices might look quite like that, but of course it doesn't have the same kind of computing power that a tablet will have. It's built for one specific task, and other than that, it's not going to do the same things as a tablet. We'll get into that a little bit more in a moment as well. Why might somebody, if somebody was kind of just thinking about all the various things that we've spoken about so far, and again, personal preference is always going to come into this, but who would pick, typically speaking, who would choose to pick a CCTV device that you can't bring around anywhere? You can only use it in one location. Who would choose that instead of the handheld device?
Good question. Yeah, I think I've seen people use them in workplaces, for their office duties. Somebody in an office is going to have a load of paperwork to be sifting through, and definitely there's a role for these devices in that scenario. So somebody maybe in their elder years and you're not out and about as much, and they're at home maybe and enjoy reading the local newspaper, the daily newspaper. It's nice to have it in the sitting room or living room or somewhere like that, and they can just go over, sit down, pop in their magazine and read away. And they're probably, with your bigger screen and everything, the buttons are a lot bigger and more defined as well. So it's probably an easier to use device as well over a handheld. Yeah,
very good. And I suppose that is probably something that a lot of us are used to the idea anyway of it, that, like, for example, with a desktop computer or a laptop, the laptop has its advantages and it's portable and it's easy enough, but some people choose to have a desktop because they have one workstation, which is just nice to have it kind of perfectly set up for work. You could kind of take the same approach, I guess.
That's definitely true. Yeah.
So just thinking about what was mentioned there already about sort of tablets or mobile devices, iOS or Android, we've been talking up till now about kind of purpose-built devices, things that are just built to only do magnification or kind of display colors, or possibly reading out indications devices we spoke about. But actually, the idea of a mobile phone doing some of these functions, actually covering some of these functions, would be quite interesting to a lot of people because they already have a mobile phone. So what can you tell us about the magnifier, maybe on, if we said iOS devices to start with?
Yeah, you do. They do have the magnifier built into iOS, and it has been around for quite a few of the previous updates. Your iOS's 10s and 11s. Yeah, it's been around quite a while. Right. So the magnifier, you have to switch it on through the system accessibility menu. You switch it on there, and then you can access it. And I've gone through it, would have been me and or lucky, and I said, well, they have the iPhone.
Have we lost Daniel there?
No, just temporarily lost him. I can maybe just continue on.
Yeah.
Daniel's conversation there. Yeah, just as Daniel was pointing out, the magnifier feature on your iOS device. So first of all, yeah, not everyone is aware that Apple has this magnifier feature that's available on the iPhone and the iPad, and more or less it turns your device into a magnifying glass, so you can zoom in on objects that are close to you. It was available from, it was iOS 10 back in 2016. So it's been around for a few years, and again, it's a really helpful feature for people who have low vision and they're using an iPad or an iPhone. As Daniel mentioned there, you can turn it on going into your settings, then go down to accessibility and just tapping magnifier, and then from here you can use your accessibility shortcut. So if you have an iPhone 10 or later, you'd be looking at triple tapping the side button, and then you can drag the slider to adjust the magnification, and then you're closing it by swiping up from the bottom of the screen. If you have an earlier iPhone, like an iPhone 8 for example, or earlier, you can triple click the home button and that'll turn it on. You can also actually add magnifier to your control center if you want, for easy access. So yeah, just in terms of like how do you use it, when you have it open, you can do things like you can apply color filters, you can invert the colors, or you can save a magnified object as well as an image. There's also a really cool feature with magnifier. It's using the flashlight. So if you're in a dark environment trying to magnify something, you can turn on the flashlight while magnifier is open to see an object that you're trying to magnify, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Very good. Is there much in the way of magnifiers for like Android devices or anything like that? Is there?
There are
things.
Yeah, there are alternatives for Android and iOS. There are actually alternatives, and more what we're kind of finding is that a lot of people are using their phones as an alternative to a CCTV or portable digital magnifier. I mean, the cameras in smartphones have got so good, and in some tablets. I mean, the resolution has improved so much over the last few years. So I mean, for starters, you can just take a picture of text or an object, and then you can enlarge it just like with a pinch to zoom. But I mean, again, a lot of users will say that a portable digital magnifier does have better resolution, better features as well. You know, I mean, these are designed specifically for people who have low vision. But yeah, I mean, apps are available. One app that's available on iOS and Android is the magnifying glass app. So it's called Magnifying Glass plus Flashlight, and it's a free app on iOS and Android that more or less makes reading small text a bit more straightforward. It uses the device's camera on your phone, and allows you to zoom in and out if you want to slide your finger up and down. So it's something to try. But I mean, it's funny. I think a lot of people who I've come across people who have an iPhone, and maybe they're just not aware of the magnifier tool that's on it. So yeah, it's just definitely worth trying out.
Yeah, definitely worth kind of making people aware of, because the basic features that we mentioned before on the handheld digital magnifiers are pretty much the same as the ones that are available on the iPhone. So some people actually are happy enough to use them instead of a digital handheld magnifier, one that's purpose built. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And that would be kind of quite a money saver as well, wouldn't it?
It certainly would, and you know, it certainly would. I mean, and excuse me, looking towards September, we're likely to see even more some enhancements made to the magnifier tool as well on iOS, which could be interesting. So people might be using magnifier already, and they can expect to have certain improvements made to that feature in the next few months. So that'll be good to see as well. Maybe I could just, if we wait with Daniel, maybe we can have a quick discussion on some of these. And I know, like back in June, we had the Apple Developer Conference, and it was noted this time that there are going to be several enhancements made to the magnifier feature on the iPhone and the iPad when we have iOS 14, which is going to be hopefully available to the public in September. I mean, to look at some of the enhancements, the Apple have actually, for starters, they've redesigned the user interface on the magnifier app. So what's going to happen is going to become more easily available, more easy to see. The controls are going to be more easy to see, and it's going to offer a bit more clarity on what each feature does. So to give you an example, like if you turn on or open up the magnifier feature on your iPhone at the moment, what you're presented with is a slider where you can control the magnification level. That's kind of around the bottom kind of center of the device. There's a capture button where you can take a picture. There's a flash button which will turn on the torch, which you mentioned earlier, and there's also an autofocus lock to lock the focus if you want. And there's also a filter button, so you can choose if you want to choose a filter to see with what's being magnified on the screen. But in iOS 14, so in a couple months' time, all these buttons are still going to be there, but they're going to be made more clear. So, for example, little things like the flash icon at the moment, which turns on the torch, that's going to be replaced with an image of a torch. So it's a bit more intuitive. You know exactly, what you press, like what it's going to do, what function it carries out. As well as that, there's going to be the slider button, the magnification slider button, which I mentioned. So if you want to increase or decrease magnification, you can use that a bit more easily because they're going to be making that a bit more clear. The buttons on either side of the slider, the plus and minus symbol, are going to be more visible, large and visible for people to use. But they're also Apple are also introducing some new apps as well on the home screen to adjust the brightness and the contrast. So these are brand new features for the magnifier tool, so they'll be interesting to see. And apparently it's also going to be possible to rearrange all the controls on the home screen as well in magnifier, so to kind of customize it for the user's needs. So for example, if a particular filter is required or a particular contrast, they're going to be there automatically. It'll be very easy to adjust them. Another feature as well it's called multi-shot, so it's going to allow you to capture more than one photo at a time. So at the moment you can just capture one photo with magnifier, but you can think of situations maybe if you're out for dinner and maybe there's a restaurant menu of several pages, you can take a picture of each page and then you can put them all together, so you can have a look at them all at the one time instead of having a look at them one by one, so it could save a bit of time.
Excellent.
Yeah. As one last feature I can just mention here with magnifier, just for anyone who uses magnifier quite a lot, it's going to be possible now to add an app icon to the home screen. So if you want to activate magnifier, you can use this function, and it's actually going to be possible through the app library. So this is a brand new feature that's being introduced in iOS 14, and what it's doing is it automatically organizes your apps. So once you open the app library, you'll be able to drag the magnifier app onto, for example, your home screen, so it'll always be there. Really easy to turn on and turn off. Yeah,
very easily accessible. Yeah, that's brilliant. It does go to kind of just highlight what we've mentioned quite a few times on the live events, and it's been kind of a source of a bit of humor as well. But the idea of just having a smartphone, obviously here we're talking about iPhones, and the iPhones just are excellent with a lot of these different apps that are available. I mean, having something like that, or seeing AI, or some of the navigation things that we've spoken about, it's incredible to have all of those devices on a phone that just goes in your pocket that you might already have, and not have the expense that's involved. It's amazing, really, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, it's like an all-in-one device, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So some really good options there if somebody's looking into the idea of using a magnifier. Now we're going to move on in just a moment to chat to one of our service users about the Connect 12. So we might just leave John Paul to go ahead, JP to go ahead and
thanks to you,
contact her, and we'll come back to you in a moment, JP. Just in the meantime, I think we have Daniel back.
Yes, sorry about that. Our telephone lines in this part of the world today are dropping the internet every couple of hours, so I just lost you for about 3 or 4 minutes, and I missed a really interesting piece there. I just caught the end of JP talking about the magnifier improvements that are coming in iOS 14, so it's going to be one to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. And so far, I mean, as we've spoken about most of these sort of different approaches to magnification, it is quite an interesting one, isn't it? That usually when we're talking about the various things that can be done technology wise, you're often talking about either trying to enhance vision that's still there maybe, or you're trying to almost translate something visual into something audio. But within those categories, there's so many different approaches, isn't there? So many different ways that you can get the most out of, for example, out of residual vision.
Definitely, yeah. And it is amazing to see like how the smartphone has kind of took on that role of magnification, and kind of has brought it to another level as well. Like there's another, I know we spoke there about the iOS for a moment, but there's a feature on the Android that's select to speak, and I'm just thinking of the person that's in the restaurant maybe, and to just take a photo of the the menu in the restaurant, and using select to speak, then they can actually directly just select the photo of the menu and start reading out the items off the menu for you. So it's been very interesting to see the different innovative ways that companies such as Apple and Google have took the magnifiers to a new level.
Yeah, absolutely. It's excellent. And we're kind of going to move on to the Connect 12 in a moment. Just while JP is contacting Eavan, maybe we can just put the picture in people's minds of what we're going to be talking about a little bit. The idea of the Connect 12, how would that be kind of different to a magnifier?
Well, it's a magnifier plus. We kind of touched on some of the features, such as OCR. We're talking about the optical character recognition, where it can read back the text to you. That is one of the features of the Connect 12. So again, it's taking your magnifier and it's putting on these extra things the software can do there with it as well. So I think we have Eavan here.
Yeah, perfect. Yep. So what we'll do now is we're going to hand back over to JP, who's going to be talking to Eavan Lynam Gleeson about the Connect 12.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jude. And you're very welcome, Eavan. Good to have you with us.
Thanks, JP. Very glad to join today.
So, Eavan, we've just been speaking about some of the handheld digital magnifiers that are available to people who have low vision, and also some CCTVs. And I suppose what we're kind of getting at here is we've kind of found in the last few years, kind of the profile of some of the CCTVs that are available has changed a lot. So for a lot of people, it's portability is what's needed, and having the option if you wanted to connect to the internet. And these are kind of features that are as important to having a CCTV as with magnification. And I suppose this has resulted in the development of new types of digital magnifiers, including the Connect 12 from Humanware, which I know you've been using for a while. So what I was hoping that you might be able to do is just maybe just to start with, Eavan, you might be able to just tell us a little bit about yourself and the Connect 12 and then how you use it.
Sure. So I'm Dublin born and bred, and I go way back with the NCBI. So I've just turned 30, but I've been visually impaired since I was born. I had congenital cataracts, as did my identical twin sister. So we had cataract surgery when we were about 6 months old, which removed our lenses. And since then, we've managed with glasses and contact lenses and some visual aids. So for me, my distance vision would be much poorer than my near vision. But like in school, I just went to the normal local primary and secondary school and got on quite well with just some enlarged books and handheld magnifiers. But this was back in the 90s, I guess. And in college, it was really then when I needed more help in terms of enabling me to see in lectures and that kind of thing. So that would have been when I first used more advanced visual aids. So I studied maths in Trinity, and then I did some postgraduate in England. And at that time, I used a device called an Optiverso, which it was basically like a camera that you plugged into your laptop, and I'd point it at the blackboard and it would bring up what was on the board on the screen. And so I managed with that. And now I'm working for Deloitte. I'm an actuary there, and it's in my work in Deloitte that I've switched to using the Connect 12. So the Connect 12, I'm not sure what you've already said about it before I joined the call, but
only a little bit.
Okay. Well, it's a digital magnifier. So what you've got is like a tablet and a stand. and you just clip the tablet into the stand, and the stand holds it up so you can place like a book or anything that you wanted to magnify underneath the tablet, and it brings up the image onto the screen. So you can, like, if you wanted to do something like sewing, you'd be able to see your hands and the needle and that kind of thing. So an intricate task. Or if you're looking at text, you can look at the text as it is in the book, or you can put it in a different, more easier to view format. There's lots of different views, like you can have black on white, white on black, and text which are easier on the eye. So it's suitable for reading, writing, and anything kind of intricate that you'd like to look at. It can read out the text to you if you are more comfortable having it read than reading it yourself. And because the tablet has a touch screen, it's pretty intuitive and easy to zoom in and out and to navigate around. And the feature for me, which is most important, is that you can also get a distance viewing camera to attach. So that would be if you were looking at slides or a blackboard or something like that. You just connect the camera and it can zoom, I think, up to 40 times. And there's lots of display effects to make it easier. So that's where I'd use it in meetings or that kind of thing. If there's a spreadsheet on display on a projector, I'd just be able to zoom in and see it on the tablet.
Right.
Which wouldn't be possible otherwise.
Excellent. So, Eavan, that was my next question. I was going to ask you, like, what made you choose the Connect 12 over, like, there's so many other digital magnifiers available. So, is it the fact that you have the distance viewing camera and that it's lightweight and it's a portable device?
Yeah, the distance camera for me would be the main thing, and also it's much more modern than equipment I had previously used, which it did the same thing, but it's a much more up-to-date, much better magnification. The tablet makes it much easier to use than using it with, say, a laptop. It's portable, like you said. I was really impressed when I saw it working in the demo. The battery power is quite good. And I find, like, if you were to use, like, you know, on phones and stuff, there's apps which you could use as a magnifier or a handheld digital magnifier. They work if you're looking for a short time at something, like if you want to read a few sentences. But, you know, if you're going to be reading chapters from a book, it's much more convenient to have the stand with the book underneath it and the screen there, and you just turn the pages and hands-free, basically.
And Eavan, is it difficult to start using the camera to kind of set it up? The distance viewing camera, is it something that is it quite straightforward to set up, or does it take a bit of time?
No, it's quite straightforward. You just click it in, and I think, like, the first time you'd spend a minute looking at it, but you get very used to it. Like, I'd use it not every week, but some weeks I'd use it a couple of times a week. So it's pretty easy, and it comes with a bag for easy stowing. Quick to set up. To the Connect 12 itself, Eavan, is I mean, if you're using the Connect 12 for, you know, bringing to different meetings, and maybe if you're out of the office as well, is it quite easy to carry around? I mean, we're talking about some of the CCTVs earlier that, you know, they'll stay in one location in your house because they're quite heavy. Is the Connect 12 something that you will be able to quite easily bring from meeting room to meeting room and that kind of thing? Yeah, it's relatively light. I think it's like 3 or 4 kilos. So, like, if you were using it in a school setting and had lots of books and things, you might want to leave it in the school overnight rather than bring it back and forth or that kind of thing every day. But, like, for my usage, where I'm not going that far and not all of the time, it's convenient. It's not intrusively heavy. And
so who else do you think the Connect 12 might be suitable for? So what other kind of types of uses? You mentioned, like, earlier, using the near viewing camera as well, but, like, you know, like who might the Connect 12 like kind of be kind of work very well for? Like, you know, are there other people who you think you would advise using it?
I would think that anyone who had difficulty either with near vision or with distance viewing. So the distance viewing, I would say anyone in a classroom, a lecture theatre, conferences, meetings. For the near viewing, I'd say, you know, even if you can perform a task without it, it can make it a lot easier. So, you know, if you're trying to thread a needle or something like that, you might eventually end up able to do it, but it makes it a lot easier and a lot faster once you get used to using the Connect 12. So, yeah, anyone who struggles with those kind of day-to-day things or with reading.
Yeah, and can I just ask about, like, if this had been available when you were in school, do you think you'd have used it?
definitely. Yeah, I think it would have made things a lot easier.
Yeah.
My poor mother was like enlarging and photocopying textbooks and things like that. Like my vision did improve as I got older, but in the start, definitely.
Okay. Oh, great. Well, thanks very much for answering those questions. I don't know if either Jude or Daniel has anything to add to any questions for Eavan.
Yeah, I was actually just really interested to hear that, Eavan. It was it's interesting just to hear the kind of everyday use of the device as well. It's one that seems to have really changed things for people in general. I was actually just going to bring Daniel into the conversation a little bit as well, because Daniel has a bit of experience using the Connect 12 in the kind of, I suppose, school setting as well. I would imagine, Daniel, with the devices such as the Connect 12 that are designed for both distance and up close reading, things like that, they're quite versatile in general.
They are indeed, Jude. The Connect 12, I've seen them, being used in quite a few schools around the country now at this stage, and at the back end of the Connect 12, you have your Android operating system, and that gives the students the facilities to have their apps that contain digital school books in there as well. So, from going from classroom to classroom, having all your books on this tablet is quite good. Now, obviously, you're going to have handouts in class and everything that that teacher is going to hand them out, and you need to be able to bring them up. So you have your near magnification as well. So it is a great little all-rounder for distance vision as well. If you want to bring stuff that's on, maybe on the blackboard up, you have that option as well, and you can capture those. So there's plenty of versatility within this little device that makes life so much easier for students.
Very good. And Eavan, I was just really interested to hear your expressions about using it as well. Apologies if I missed this. Now, my internet connection was just dipping out a little bit during the interview there, but just in relation to maybe some of your colleagues as well, I would imagine just being able to have a device such as the Connect 12 makes it a lot easier. Like, for example, if you had to have a device for each one of the aspects that the Connect 12 actually does, the office space that you would use up, the way of interacting with others as well, I suppose, would be impacted by that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It would take up more space, and you'd be carrying stuff around there because it's all in one. You're relying on one thing. You haven't forgotten the magnifier when you've brought the distance camera, that kind of thing. So it's much easier that way.
Does that change other people's kind of
more space than a laptop?
Yes, sorry, go ahead, Eavan.
Sorry, I was just saying it's quite compact, so it wouldn't take up too much more space in front of you than having a laptop in front of you, which would be quite normal in reading, I guess. Very
good. Does that kind of change people's approach in any way to the work that you do? I mean, this isn't a question necessarily that you're prepared for, so don't worry if there's not much that you want to comment on this, but just in relation to how somebody might approach you if they expect you to have a number of different big devices to be able to complete a task, for example, in comparison to being able to have something so portable. Does that affect kind of colleagues' view a little bit, or how easy it is to work along with others?
I find people are very good about it. Like at first, when if it's somebody new and they first see the machine, they can be quite curious about it. But after that, the second time, the third time, people don't really take any notice of it. They're just talking to you like they would talk to anybody else. So it works quite well from that point of view.
Brilliant. Very good. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Eavan. We really appreciate you kind of giving us your insight into using the Connect 12. And thanks to JP as well for taking us through the interview there.
Great. Thanks for that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Very good. So today we've been looking at different types of magnifiers, and throughout it you've likely seen a number of different kind of approaches to the same common theme of trying to magnify maybe whether it's text or images or distance things. We've kind of looked at a number of different approaches. If that's something that you kind of feel like you haven't been able to absorb all of it, this this live event will be available afterwards, of course, on YouTube and all the other different platforms as well that are available. So you'll be able to rewatch that. But if you want to get any support from the technology team, of course, always feel free to contact NCBI. And the technology support line is 1850 92 30 60 or 01531 2975. Or of course, you can email labs@ncbi.ie as well, and we'd be happy to help out with giving a little bit more guidance or advice on any of the subjects that we've been talking about, or if you have any other particular technology questions as well. Just a reminder as well that if you want to access the wider NCBI services, you can do that by calling 1850 33 43 53. That's 1850 33 43 53, or you can contact info@ncbi.ie. Of course, if you want to make a donation to support our services, you're welcome to do that as well, and you can visit donate.ncbi.ie. And again, if you want to sponsor one of our live events, you can email the labs address, labs@ncbi.ie, to keep our live events going. Now, just before we go, we just want to give you a little bit of a reminder about what's going to be in some of our future events coming up. So we are going to look at typing tutors, what sort of typing tutors are available. It's such a useful skill when you're trying to get used to the different software packages that you can use on a computer, for example. Being able to control the computer through the keyboard is a really helpful thing. So typing tutors can be really valuable tools. So we'll look at that on a future event. We're also going to look at the Lazarillo app, a navigation app as well. So that's one that we'll look at in the future. A reminder that our next live event, as we mentioned earlier, we've gone to a monthly schedule now, so once a month. And our next live event is going to be Tuesday, September 8th at 2:30 p.m. So that's Tuesday, September 8th at 2:30 p.m. is our next live event. And of course, if you want to stay up to date with what's happening on our live events, as well as plenty more information that's in our newsletters as well, you can subscribe to our newsletter on our website. You can go to the technology page there, or you can email us at labs.ncbi.ie if you'd like to subscribe to the newsletter and get reminders of different live events, and also quick tips, plenty of technology news in there as well that is good reading that you can get when you're subscribed there. So all that's left for me to do today is to thank our panel again, and of course to everyone listening in as well, and our guest as well, Eavan Lynam Gleeson, and we appreciate the comments that we were able to hear from Eavan earlier on. We look forward to having you all back with us next month for another NCBI Labs live event.